I'm constantly getting comments asking, where are AMD's RX 7800 XT, whatever version, 7700, what's going on with that? And the answer has been, I don't know. We're just waiting. My theory has been that they really just need to sell out stock of cards like the 6800 XT before a card in the 7800 class would make any sense. When you look at how close in performance a 6800 XT already is to a card like the 7900 XT, how much gap in performance do you have there? 6800 XT is already at $500, a little bit less sometimes. So where does all of this fit in? And I think same issue with the 7700 XT up against a 6700 XT. The 6700 XT has already been down as low as like $299 on Prime Day. And again, AMD's RDNA 3 hasn't proved to have a massive generational performance uplift. And, again, against these discounted 6000 series cards, where does it all fit in? Well, we're finally getting some rumored information, and I should stress this is rumored information, not directly from AMD, about release dates for the RX 7800 and 7700. I'm seeing this report from videocards.com. All of my sources will be in the video description, but apparently videocards.com is getting this source from Moore's Law is Dead on YouTube, who has a whole bunch of leaks, rumors style content. And it's looking like this is the main bulk of his claim, is that there are two Navi 32 SKUs. So again, the names of specific GPUs could be changed, but we would expect those to likely be a 7800 or 7700, possibly with some XTs or not attached to them. And apparently the plan is to announce those at Gamescom 2023. And that they would then be targeting a September release date for those cards. So if those are the cards you've been waiting for, the best current rumor is launch information at Gamescom, which is in August, from the 23rd to the 27th, and then with a September release targeted. Of course, all of that could change if these rumors are even true in the first place. And where does that put it, performance class and all of that wise? So the videocards.com article helpfully then summarizes what would be the entire 7000 series. Included in this leak is the claim that this would kind of be it for the 7000 series. So they wouldn't be planning anything else in between, at least for the moment, again, if that ends up being true. So this would give the RX 7800 XT 60 compute units, and you can see how that would stack up against the 7900 XT at 84 compute units. It'd be a 260 watt card as opposed to 315 watt on the 7900 XT. And it would be a 256-bit memory bus to support 16 gigabytes of VRAM. The 7700 XT would be on a 192-bit bus, which would make it a 12 gigabyte card. So this would seem to put it as, a pretty direct successor to the 6700 XT. Although with apparently plans anywhere between 48 to 54 compute units, I believe that does give it more compute units than the 6700 XT off the top of my head. So I would expect some kind of performance bump there. Again, my main question is what would the price be though? For example, we've seen the RX 7600 come in, and it did eventually come in with a $269 price point, apparently at the last minute. But AMD, according to reviewers, had originally been thinking of a $300 price point, and this card was not much faster than the 6600 XT, which was in the current market pricing around $250 at the time of this launch, which again didn't make it some giant value upgrade compared to what the current pricing was in the current market from the 6000 series cards. So again, that's my main thing about this, is if the 7800 XT comes in a little bit faster than a 6800 XT, but if its price point is more like $600 or $700, then that's not very exciting. Remember, the MSRP of the 7900 XT is $900, despite the fact that you've been starting to be able to find it closer to $700 if you get, good sales on it and coupon codes and all of that kind of stuff. So if a 7800 XT came in at like $600, but was only a little bit faster than a 6800 XT, which has been as low as, $480, $490 recently, how exciting is that? I guess that's kind of my point, and I think maybe why AMD has been waiting is I think they're trying to sell through a lot of that 6000 series stock. And again, the 7700 XT could be a similar issue. It might be faster than a 6700 XT, but the 6700 XT has been as low as $300 new as of Prime Day, and then even without Prime Day, $310 to $330 or so. So if the 7700 XT comes in at $400 or $500, remember the 6700 XT's MSRP was $480. So if they're anywhere near that MSRP on the 7700 XT, but it's not, it has to be a lot faster than a 6700 XT to make that exciting when the 6700 XT has been available new for $300. So anyway, I'm hoping to be pleasantly surprised by these, but we shall see. And I think, in my opinion, it's all going to depend on that pricing. Although the silver lining, I think the real fine wine of AMD GPUs tends to be that they're even if their MSRPs aren't that exciting when they launch, they seem less stuck on sticking to those MSRPs and do seem to allow the pricing to float according to actual market demands a lot more than Nvidia does. For example, the 7900 XT, like I said, has been available as low as about $700 recently, despite a terrible launch MSRP of $900. And even the 7600s have already come down and were coming down in price immediately after launch. So we'll have to see all of this, how all of this plays out, but that's the info that I can get you at the moment. Now, how about Nvidia? Well, so we have Nvidia has officially said that the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte version is their next GPU launch, and it's happening in July. Rumors, but not official information, have placed that release date on July 18th, which you'll notice at the time of this video puts it in just a couple of days. Now, I can tell you that I have not heard from Nvidia regarding this GPU at all, which is not typical of if the launch date was actually the 18th. I would have received review samples and some embargoed information and all of that, which just has not happened at this point. Apparently, I'm not the only one noticing that, and Hardware Unboxed on Twitter has said the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte is meant to be arriving this month. Word on the street is the 18th. Again, there were leaked information posted on videocards.com that I've reported on in a previous news video about that. He said he can't confirm or deny that as he doesn't know. So sounds like in a similar situation as me, there has not been any official review program launching for this. So now there's no official review program for this model. There will be no FE version, and it seems that Nvidia and their partners really don't want to know about it. Or maybe don't want you to know about it. I don't know. Every Nvidia partner I've spoken to so far has said they won't be providing review samples, and they're not even sure when their model will be available. Again, this is from Hardware Unboxed, and they're saying, so I don't know when you'll be able to view our review, but I will be buying one as soon as I can. I expect coverage will be pretty thin, and that's probably the plan. The release strategy here is similar to the RTX 3080 12GB. Okay, so basically, yeah, I don't have anything to add to this other than, like I said, I know that the 18th is just a rumor date, so I mean, it could be, as far as I know, still the case that Nvidia is planning a July launch more like at the, July 30th or something at the end of the month, and will fire up a full review program and maybe I'll be contacted. But that certainly does not seem to be the case right now. And it sounds like Hardware Unboxed have reached out to more partners and than I have contacts with, and seems to be confirming that there's no planned review launch for this card. He's mentioning the similarity to the RTX 3080 12GB, which was launched without any review samples and even no official MSRP. This is all similar, there was a 3060 8GB model, which also launched without any review samples or anything like that. So it would not be out of character for Nvidia to launch a different VRAM version of a GPU without review samples, especially if they would expect negative coverage. For example, if the 3080 12GB was actually a small improvement to the 3080 10GB, but they didn't give any MSRP, and when they launched, they were more expensive. And again, a 3068 gigabyte update to the 12 gigabyte version performed worse, and so it's understandable why Nvidia would not want coverage of that. So it seems likely that they just don't see any value in sending out a 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte for reviews and then having it absolutely thrashed in reviews, which will be the expected result. Basically, the 4060 Ti original 8 gigabyte version was already trashed in reviews for being $400 for an 8 gigabyte card that wasn't much faster than the previous generation's $400 3060 Ti, which was also 8 gigabytes. Anyway, so updating it to 16 gigabytes, first of all, will not help its performance unless you're spilling over 8 gigabytes of VRAM. So in many games, it will have the same performance as the 8 gigabyte model, but cost $100 more. Nvidia has claimed that the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte will be a $500 graphics card. So $100 more for, well, no increase in performance when you're not spilling over 8 gigabytes of VRAM. And then what remains to be seen in the reviews is, and then in the games where it does spill over 8 gigabytes of VRAM on the 8 gigabyte model, how much better does this perform? Still has a very narrow memory bus, a 128-bit bus, so that's still going to be one of the problems with the card that adding the extra VRAM doesn't really solve. I think had the 16 gigabyte model come in at $400 and there just wasn't an 8 gigabyte model, maybe we would have seen more positive reviews, but Nvidia's already locked themselves into claiming a $500 price point on this, in which case, similar to where I think, AMD is going to have problems competing with their own 6800 XT from the previous generation, which has been around $500 or less for a long time now. I think that NVIDIA's 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte will have trouble competing with the 6800 XT 16 gigabyte card from AMD, which again comes in at, has been around at $500 for a long time now. But again, we'll have to see where this goes. I do plan to buy one and review on my channel. I think it'll be very interesting. And also just to have in general for future video game reviews, like it'll be interesting to see a 8 gigabyte versus 16 gigabyte model of the same GPU to narrow down, how much, VRAM spillover is happening on 8 gigabyte cards at what settings and things like that, and have a like for like comparison like that. I think it certainly will be interesting. Anyway, thank you to channel members and all that who directly support the channel so that I can buy GPUs like that when when the review samples apparently aren't going to be coming out. Another issue that the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte is going to face is the fact that 4060 Ti 8 gigabyte models have already had to lower pricing. And apparently on Newegg, if you were willing to sign up for a ZipTech promo, so this isn't really the same thing as a normal price drop, it's not even a coupon code, but if you were willing to pay with ZipTech, apparently over the, I think this is expired now, but this was available for several days, you could have taken a chunk off the price and obtained a 4060 Ti 8 gigabyte for as low as $334. Now, I don't usually report price drops that involve having to sign up for some kind of payment plan on my channel as a actual price drop, but videocards.com was reporting this, and I think that is certainly something interesting to mention when you then think about the again, the $500 price point just to get the extra 8 gigabytes of VRAM on the 16 gigabyte model. Now, speaking of other GPU price drops, I just did a video talking about the Arc A750, as well as the A770 versus the RTX 4060 non-TI version. And the A750 was the one that stood out as offering the more interesting value. And at that time, its price was $210 to $220. However, in the day or two since I launched that video, on Newegg, it's not only dropped to $199.99, but also with an instant promo code of $20 off, which would bring this down to $180, and now put it in direct competition price-wise with the RX 6600 non-XT version. And if this price stays, I think I do need to produce a video with that comparison. Because in the past, the A750 has always been in a more similar price competition with the 6600 XT version, but this now brings it down below $200, and I think could now be a much more interesting value proposition, and could be could be worth definitely another look at that. Now, also, Intel drivers continue to improve. There's a new beta driver available on their website. And among the game support highlights of supporting Exoprimal and Jagged Alliance 3, they're also claiming League of Legends DX11 performance uplift of up to 6% at 1080p very high settings and up to 10% at 1440p very high settings. So continuing to offer driver improvements to boost the performance, and that is very good to see. As you know, people are definitely wanting them to continue in the GPU business and see if they can continue to offer also become more competitive and hopefully continue to be very price competitive like we're seeing here. And not go the way of the Intel NUC business. Apparently, Intel is exiting the PC. I hate the phrasing of this title. Exiting the PC business. No, Intel is not exiting the just PC business in general. They're exiting the NUC business of making their own full PCs. I see what they mean with that headline, but if you don't carefully read that, you might be like, wait, they're just not working on PCs at all in any capacity? No, it's just their line of NUCs that they are exiting. The official statement, I believe, is at the end of this article here, which says, "We have decided to stop direct investment in the next unit of compute NUC business and pivot our strategy to enable our ecosystem partners to continue NUC innovation and growth. This decision will not impact the remainder of Intel's client group, computing group, CCG, or network and edge computing NEX business. Furthermore, we are working with our partners and customers to ensure a smooth transition and fulfillment of all our current commitments, including ongoing support for NUC products currently in the market." Anyway, so, Intel launched these like mini PCs and all that, as well as some other things. It looks like, I think the market has kind of expanded to where there's enough third-party versions of these that maybe it doesn't make sense for Nvidia to compete with those other mini PC manufacturers and all that directly. In other Intel news, we have a rumored lineup of the 14th Gen Core Raptor Lake refresh series, showing more cores and higher clock speeds. This is reported at videocards.com. However, it looks like their source for these is coming from Red Gaming Tech on YouTube. And he published a number of the core configurations in a video recently. Now, videocards.com has helpfully placed those rumored, and I do stress rumored, this is not official, core counts as along with any of the clock speeds that were leaked, up against the 12th gen and the 13th gen chips. And so what's basically interesting here is that at the top end, the 900, the i9 series, does not get any additional cores, but does look to be getting a small clock speed boost to at least give it some reason to exist as a refresh. Whereas the other ones, we don't have clock speeds rumored, but below this point, we're starting to see additional cores added to it. For a lot of them, that's E-cores, the extra efficiency cores that aren't really going to help you in gaming. Like the i7 series looks to be going from 8 efficiency cores to 12 efficiency cores. The 600 series here going from 8 efficiency cores. Sorry, keeping the 8 efficiency cores, but going from 6 performance cores on the 600 series to 8 performance cores, keeping the 8 efficiency cores. And then on the 500 series, we're maintaining the i5, we're maintaining the 6P cores. Sorry, there was another i5 600. Sorry, geez, I'm messing this up. But yeah, the 600s look to be getting up to 8 performance cores. And then the 500 and 400 class look to be going, keeping the 6 performance cores, but going up to 8 efficiency cores on the 400 series. Remains to be seen what then that is being offered on the 500 because it looks to be maintaining the 6P8E configuration. Anyway, this is all rumored stuff in general, so we'll have to wait and see if that all comes to pass, but that seems to be the differences, at least in the rumors. Now, speaking of the efficiency core of approach to everything, there had been some rumors saying that AMD might try to go that route with future releases. However, there was an interview. Apparently, the full interview was at Tech Power Up. I'm spotting this quote from it at WCCF Tech, where AMD is claiming that they will not follow the P-core and E-core hybrid approach. The specific quote is here, where it says, this is from AMD Vice President David McAfee, where it says, I know that Mark Papermaster talked a lot about different core types coming into our portfolio. I guess what I would say is that as we've looked at different core types, there's probably two things that are overarching factors that we think about in terms of how they fit into the portfolio. One is the notion that P-cores and E-cores that the competition uses, Intel, is not the approach that we plan on taking at all. So that is not the approach that we plan on taking at all. It's a pretty strong statement, because I think the reality is that when you get to the point of having core types with different ISA capabilities or IPC or things like that, it makes it very complicated to ensure that the right workloads are scheduled on the right cores consistently. Now, I will mention, though, that they actually already sort of have done something, not with P-cores and E-cores, but getting into this scheduling workloads to different cores in their X3D chips with the 7900 X3D and 7950 X3D, where they do have one core cluster, one CCD with the extra Vcache for gaming and one without it, and then using some kind of workaround through like the game bar to basically disable the core without the extra cache while gaming. So they kind of did get into a bit of that, those complications already with that particular lineup. That's my side note here. But anyway, let's continue. Does that make its way into a desktop processor where you're power unconstrained? I think that's a harder argument to make. We're constantly looking at different core types, how they might fit into our architectures in the future, but I think there's some more obvious places where different core types come in and bring an advantage much more quickly than in the desktop space. I think laptops are a far more practical application for where you might see that adopted much more quickly. So while headlines say things like, AMD won't follow the hybrid approach, I don't think that's exactly what he's saying. I think what he's saying is that that approach doesn't make sense in a desktop platform where you're not running into power issues. He's saying but then that would add in extra complications to scheduling the workloads. Whereas in the laptop space, that it might make more sense to have some efficiency cores alongside more powerful cores when they're needed, seems to be more of what the actual quote is saying here. So anyway, I thought it was useful to read the full quote rather than just go off of that headline. Now, in other AMD news, I did report on this in my Prime Day video, but maybe not everybody watched Prime Day deals. AMD has officially launched their Starfield bundles. And along with, so specifically, certain products from certain retailers that are compatible with this deal are offering either Starfield Premium Edition or the Starfield Standard Edition. And again, it's jumbled up between which are offering which. Basically, it looks like in the GPU space, the 600 class from both the 6000 and 7000 series are offering the Standard Edition deal. And in the graphics card segment, basically everything above the 600 class. So 6700 XT and up, including the 7000 series, is offering the Premium Edition. With the processor series, it looks like only the Ryzen 9s are offering the Premium Edition, whereas all the other CPUs are offering the Standard Edition for that game bundle. Also, it looks like they may be offering some full gaming system builds, so entire pre-built or maybe laptop deals where it will come bundled with Starfield. Along with this, somewhat interestingly, they did publish this, build your own experience. So I was considering whether this made sense reporting as a update to the Starfield System Requirements. However, I really don't think so. I mean, I'll mention it here because they don't go into much detail beyond resolution and vague adjectives for frame rate and settings, right? So they are saying that for a legendary 4K experience, which is a no-compromise 4K gamer who wants the absolute best Starfield experience, they are recommending a 7800X3D and a 7900 XT. But what does that actually mean? I don't know. Does that mean 60 FPS at 4K max settings? Probably, but that's really not guaranteed. It's just marketing speak, as no compromises and the absolute best. Yeah, who knows? And then they're claiming for 1440p epic experience, which is ideal for hardcore 1440p or widescreen. I'm guessing they mean ultra wide, like 3440 by 1440 gamers to deliver max visual settings and high FPS. But what high FPS means, I don't know. Does that mean 60 FPS? They are claiming that AMD's RX 6800 is able to deliver that with the 7700X CPU, but these are just featured, right? Whatever that means. And the heroic experience, which is apparently the perfect entry specs for 1080p to experience great visuals and frame rates. But great visuals and frame rates certainly sounds like this is not targeting max settings 1080p. And great frame rates, is that 40? Is that 60? Is that 100? Who knows? Probably not 100. They're targeting RX 7600 and a R5 7600 CPU. So again, make of this what you will. It maybe gives us some sort of idea what sort of GPU for what sort of experience. But again, I don't think it's detailed enough to really read too much into there. So let's move on. In some other quicker information, AMD's FidelityFX SDK 1.0 is now available for download for game developers. What does this mean? Remember, FidelityFX is not just FSR. That is one of the FidelityFX game technologies that they offer. It's just the most famous one. They also have a whole bunch of other ones with ambient occlusion. They're adding a few new ones like blur, depth of field, and lens. And the main thing that this SDK is doing, other than introducing these three new technologies, is that it's allowing an SDK that can implement all of them together with better documentation and a more streamlined process, whereas previously many of these were just implemented separately without consistent process or documentation. We're also seeing evidence that Nvidia is now shipping their RTX 4090 Founders Edition with an updated power connector. It still basically looks the same. The difference is shorter sense pins, which should make it harder for a power connector that is not fully seated to be drawing power through the connector and burning up your connector, as has been reported since the launch of the 4090. So theoretically, that should help. Although I can't confirm it actually does without any sort of testing and all of that. Now this is interesting. Linux hits all-time high of, well, it's only 3%, but still all-time high of desktop PC share after 30 years. This is a Tom's Hardware article that is apparently getting their source as stat counter. It is kind of interesting looking at this graph of desktop operating systems. You can see that Windows has taken a bit of a dip as it looks like unknown, whatever that is the big winner here. But Linux is the red line here, which is apparently going up a bit. Anyway, I think a lot, for gamers, Linux is getting a lot more attractive with a lot of the work that Valve is putting into through their Steam Deck. I know I'm certainly using my Steam Deck quite a bit. And in terms of Steam Deck competitors, we're seeing ASUS confirming that the micro SD card reader on the ROG Ally is prone to failure. Sounds like my kids are waking up and running around upstairs, so we'll try to make the rest of this quick, and apologies for the noise. Anyway, it looks like due to its positioning, there could be some heat issues. Apparently, they've issued a statement saying that They're working on this. Their confirmation from internal testing under certain thermal stress conditions, the SD card reader may malfunction. And to alleviate the issue, they'll be releasing an update that further fine-tunes the default and minimum fan speeds on the device to improve reliability while keeping fan noise in check. That's the big question mark for me. Well, I mean, first of all, big question mark. Are they going to be able to just adjust fan speeds and actually solve the problem? Or is it a problem that can't really be solved due to the positioning of the SD card reader? And if it does increase fan speeds enough to help, what is happening to the fan noise? Are they really keeping that in check? We'll have to see how this plays out. I thought this was kind of interesting, but I don't have a lot to say about it. Chinese government funds CUDA-compatible GPU startup to compete against Nvidia. We'll have to see where that goes, and I would imagine this would be mainly targeting competition in like AI and other productivity workloads rather than in gaming specifically, although any shifting to the general GPU market could affect the supply and demand situation, I suppose, for gaming GPUs, which is more what my channel talks about. And we're also seeing reports of other domestic Chinese attempts to boost their own production, like apparently Huawei using China Fab's 7nm node to overcome US sanctions. Anyway, moving on to more GPU-specific news, Acer launches Radeon RX 7600 Predator BiFrost series, its first Radeon GPUs. So Acer launches its first Radeon GPU. That is definitely interesting that Acer is getting into that market, and this is with their BiFrost cooler, which has previously been available on the Arc A770. It looks like they're expanding it to the Arc A750 as well as the Radeon RX 7600. And now, in other GPU cooler news, it looks like Japanese, I'm going to butcher pronouncing that, so I don't think I can't do it, guys. You can read it right there. Launches Intel Arc A750 GPU with blue PCB and power connectors. So we are seeing another Intel board partner, it looks like, available now on an Arc A750. And Gigabyte launching an RTX 4060 low-profile GPU with 3 fans. This just looks really weird, guys. Going for the low-profile design, but still putting 3 fans on it, which also I think increases its length. So while the low-profile design will help it fit into some certain small PCs, I imagine they could have done a 2-fan version that then would have also fit into smaller form factors in that direction. But anyway, it certainly looks interesting. It does still look like it has an... wait, is there not an 8-pin power connector on the top here? Do we have word on whether we have an 8-pin power connector? It does. Yeah, it features a single 8-pin power connector. I guess it's recessed in there somewhere. I'm just having trouble seeing it in the design, but whatever. It does have an 8-pin power connector. Palit GeForce RTX 4060 GPUs come with shorter PCIe connector. So basically it's interesting to note that every 60 class GPU Nvidia has ever launched has had a PCI, has used all 16 lanes on the PCIe connector, whereas the 4060 does not. It uses 8. And so technically, you could literally just cut off half of the PCIe connector. It's not actually needed. And it appears to be the case that the Palit Dual and Storm X models will not need that that extra bit there. Now, on a larger GPU, you might need it just for maybe physical support on the actual card itself. I don't know, but these aren't that large or anything. We're also seeing Lenovo launching an RTX 4060 in mini ITX form factor, although do keep in mind that Lenovo doesn't sell their cards separately on the DIY market. You would have to buy one of their pre-built PCs that has one of these in it. But that is interesting to note, a mini ITX RTX 4060 is available from Lenovo just in a pre-built, and maybe some of these will get removed and sold on the used market or something like that. So just something to be aware of. Also, in 4060 Ti 16GB news, it looks like ASUS is launching a ProArt RTX 16GB 4060 Ti card that you could take a look at there. And then in other real quick, I was gonna talk a little bit more about some Unreal Engine 5.2 updates that were tested by Digital Foundry, talk a little bit about stuttering and things like that. Instead, I will leave this as homework for you to take a look at if you are interested. Other interesting PC tech I was going to talk a little bit more about, but I think, my kids are up and the video is getting long, so I think I'm going to leave it, is I did talk about in my recent Ratchet & Clank PC system requirements video, which, you may have skipped if you're just interested in the just GPU news sections. It is going to be featuring not just DirectStorage, but DirectStorage 1.2 with GPU decompression tech, and should be the first game doing that, and that is very interesting to see and should be fun to test out and see what other testing other people do on the channel. Anyway, I hope all of you have an excellent day.